Welcome back to our Office 365 Technical Skills V1.0 course for help desk and IT professionals or whoever is looking for new IT jobs and they're looking into this type of skills. Today we're going to cover a lot of the things that we have covered in this course in module users. Active users, how to add a user, configuring a user, guest accounts, blocking a user, deleting a user, restoring a user. So we have done that from a portal. But we need to now learn this from a PowerShell. Now, I want to remind someone who's brand new to IT or this is your first time going for IT jobs, this is not required normally from interview perspective or from you getting a job as an entry level. But knowing that you can do these things from PowerShell just gives you more confidence in future. So when you start working in a company, you're actually using this learning from the GUI, from portal. You're going to go to the portal, you're going to delete a user, recover a user, add a user, change things from a user. These are tickets. I want to change this and this and that. But do remember that it's not 100% like that. You may land a job with MSP and all of a sudden they're going to start throwing scripts on you. So you rather going and taking that stress at work and knowing that yes, it can be done from a PowerShell as well, you should start learning it from now. So we're not going to go at the engineer level where you're going to be learning something advanced like how to learn PowerShell. We're going to show you the techniques of how to use a Microsoft documentation to do a copy paste type of skills. So what I mean by that is that I am going to show you in this one video a lot of these common things can be done from PowerShell without you even knowing how PowerShell works. And that's how we learn in the beginning. We copy paste, we get to learn that practically when you get to understand what's going on. And then it gives you more ideas as a new person that, okay, it can be done on a portal, but it can be done on a script level. So this means I can do things faster or I can do things in a bulk way. That's how people are doing it. That's how these engineers are getting paid because later on they're working on massive scripts. So this is the beginning for you. So don't take any stress. Try to learn it from this video. Know that there's something available. Practice it and maybe in an interview, if somebody asks you, do you know PowerShell? Say yes, I have known the basics of PowerShell. I can do the basics administration of Office 365 from PowerShell. That's a pretty neat and pretty impressive way to impress someone. Imagine a person who doesn't know this and now you know this, you got a point right there. So let's get started with the PowerShell and how to do the module users in Office 365. All right, now we are going to start a PowerShell method of doing some of the basic stuff that we have just done in the portal section. So here I am using a JSS server. As you can see, a lot of our members can access our server, so then they have ability to practice on a machine if they don't have. So this is where when we give you the link, you can click on connect. On the right side, we have settings. So you make sure that you make the settings to go all the way to max to have a better experience, and make sure you use that remote mapping feature. So now you have this server available to you, but this is a controller machine. Remember that if you shut down this machine, after that, you cannot access your server. So I wouldn't do anything to shut down this machine. So let's say, for example, you want to practice inside a vSphere environment and you want to create your own machine. You can log into the vCenter by going to this text file on your machine. There's a username and password for that vSphere. So when you put the root and password, then you have access to our system. So you get 3 systems. You can delete these systems if you want to, but after when you log into this system, we do not provide any support into these machines because these are just practice systems. So you can have these 3 machines. You can create a domain controller environment, or you can just play around with Windows 10 if you want to do the PowerShell method. In this video, we are actually showing you a cloud-based system. So for example, Office 365 with just cloud access. There's no Active Directory. So the whole video is based on that. Next time we're going to show you how to do things on a hybrid system where Active Directory is connected. But for now, you're just learning PowerShell. So you can open a machine like that, which is a Windows 10 operating system, and then turn it on, configure it, and then use the same features that I'm showing you. Or you can use this controller machine that we have given to you, because since it's a PowerShell thing, you're not putting an Active Directory, so you can actually use a PowerShell directly on that controller machine. Just know that do not shut down this machine, because of course you're just going to lose access. So here's a PowerShell. We are going to basically use this. You can right click and edit this and go to the properties and actually change the text if you feel like want to see it bigger. I'm doing this because I want to record a video, so of course there's a message. I just click on OK on that, and then I am going to start the PowerShell method. So that's what we are going to do. Basically, we are going to do all the basic tasks from the documentation. So the first thing you need to do is to go to Google, type Office 365 PowerShell, and click on first link, connect to Microsoft 365 with PowerShell. It's very important for you to understand this, because now a lot of people may look into this and say, oh, do I really need to follow documentation to learn this? 100%, because this is a cloud-based system. They change things and you need to follow documentation. So here you can see that we are given some of the information that if you use the Active Directory as your PowerShell graph method, then there are certain things available. And then there's another way of doing things in Windows PowerShell, which you will see. I will be using both examples. So it's very important for you to understand these. If you are new to IT and you feel like this is just too much for you, just copy paste things and try to do it once and twice until you really get a hold of it. Do not take stress, because like I said in the beginning, this is not something expected from an entry-level person. But if you know, it just makes it easy for you. So the first thing, you need to make sure that when you are using PowerShell on these machines, it has to be 64-bit system, whether it's Windows 10 or whether it's a server. So to check that, you can go back to your system and basically, check that from systems, right-clicking on the system like I'm showing you right now. You click on the system like that, and then it will show you a 64-bit system. And if you want to see a version of operating system, like they say they have some, so you need to type winver, which is a command, and it will basically run that command, as you can see, and then you will see the Windows version. So the controller machine that we give out is 2019 server. You may be using Windows 10. If you're using the vSphere access inside the system, then those are also 19 server and Windows 10. So you should be good on both sides. So that's the kind of like a basic requirement. I wouldn't want to use something very old. As you can see, they are kind of going back to 2008 server, sorry. But that's something I wouldn't recommend, using something older. So here we have the first step. We need to install a module, Azure AD. Basically, we need to open a PowerShell in administrator mode. You're going to right click on PowerShell, open it as an administrator. As you can see, I open it. I'm going to show you again. You open it, type PowerShell, right click on it, and then open the run as administrator. And then after that, we need to actually connect to get that. So if you just type the normal command, or you're trying to retrieve something from a PowerShell, it's not going to work because you don't have that module. So just to show you a test, you can see I'm just copying things from here. Now you can see there's another thing that I want to mention, that I'm using a lab system that we give out. So right now you can actually inject that, input that command directly inside this system. And you can see I'm just putting that in there. But the problem with this is that sometimes if it's a very long command where you have breaks in there, I wouldn't recommend this, because then I want you to use a internal machine to do this. So here we are trying to install that module, but if I just go back and run this command without running a module, what will happen? So let's go ahead and try that. You see I get an error that it doesn't even recognize that command. So basically what we're going to do, we need to go back and install that module. So I'm going to go back again and copy paste this installation. So you need to get that Azure AD on your PowerShell. And you can see I'm not signed in or anything. I'm just trying to install that directly. So install module, it's going to take a second. It's going to ask you, do you want to allow this? You're going to say yes multiple times. And then after that, you're going to get this working. So there's some weight in this. Of course, just if your system is a little slower, then maybe it may take a little more time, but just be patient. This stuff doesn't take long, probably a minute maximum. So after this, once it's done, then you're going to allow more information right here. Untrusted repository, all these stuff is okay to get this done. So we're going to basically say yes. Now in the most companies, this may require more rights. It may be blocked by systems administrators. So if it's not working, just make sure that you also understand that there could be some policies. So once you do this, now you see my first try, it wasn't working. But if I come back again and use the command again, it's gonna work. Now you can see there's other commands for different countries, but we're going to use the first one. So now when we try that again, let's go back and connect Azure AD. I'm putting that command one more time, and if I enter, and if you're using the lab, of course, if you're doing an enter like that, sometimes it may not be like you have to click inside that Windows system. You may be outside of the system, so you have to make sure you click on that. So now it's going to prompt you for a username and password. That's where you need to actually give that administrator access, where you are either a help desk or a sysadmin or a global admin, whatever kind of rights you have. So once you connect, you're going to see something like this: tenant ID, Azure Cloud environment. That's the environment right there. That's the name. So once you get done with that, then you're done with the first step, basically. In step 2, we still need to install more modules like MS Online. Basically, like I said in the beginning, there are certain features that are available with new commands or modules that Microsoft is providing, and certain features are already there. So we need to install more. This is more of like a preparation right now for you to do things. Now in the future, you will be also shown how to kind of see if you can bypass the username and password through a script, but that's more advanced. You're still gonna just try to learn this like that. Put one command, connect, put another command, connect. But before any commands, you need to put modules, which you need these modules. So now I'm connecting to basically this service, which I just installed the MS Online module, and now when I connect to it, I should be able to see the information. So how do you know, like if I want to run this command right now to see if I'm connected or if I can do things, so I'll do the connect again. It's gonna prompt me again one more time. So I'm gonna put my username and password, and then I'm gonna it didn't give me any information, so it just tells me, okay, is there a way for me to actually check this? I can actually use the get command then. So get is more of like you're getting information. Set is more like you're setting something to do in action in PowerShell. So now you see when I did get, I got the information that yes, this was successful, and this is the outcome of this information. And that's where we are going to use a lot of commands now to kind of do something. This was just the setup information. After this setup, we are going to jump into a user section, which is our main goal in this whole PowerShell setup. So how do you set up a user? This is where you need to come over here, and this is for administrators to create users, give assignment of license, delete user, recover user, and that's what we're going to do in the GUI. We did all this stuff. Now we're going to do all of that stuff in the PowerShell. Now this is a Microsoft document, and I highly recommend that you really take your time when you're doing a practice to really learn this. As you can see in my first example, I'm just showing you a get command where I can just pull some information. How many users do we have? And you can go for specific accounts. So it's going to take you some time. Do not get overwhelmed if you're brand new. All you got to do is to copy paste like I'm doing right now. So right now, if I want to get information, try to study, start to read what they're asking or saying. What's this going to happen? So if I do get Azure AD user, so what's going to happen is going to go out there and it's going to list the users in my portal that I have right now. Now, as you can see, I'm using our lab type feature, and that feature is okay for smaller commands. But if I go back and try to use a a kind of longer command because it does need that layout. So if I copy it and I go back to my system and I open the type and I just paste it in there, it's going to kind of, regardless of its layout, it's just going to use the way it's put into. So PowerShell is sensitive the way you put it. So you can't just copy paste things from somewhere and you think that's going to work. The first thing you need to make sure that, okay, if you put a command, are you even connected? So if I run this, I am getting a parameter error. I already know that there's an issue with the layout, but sometimes you may forget, did you even log into the system? So the first thing you would want to do, again, if you're new, make sure you're connected to the PowerShell by using a connect-azure AD, put the username and password, and then you will be connected to this system. And then you can run the command again just to make sure, is it an issue with the connection, or are you even putting something wrong? So if you look at the command, of course, if you knew PowerShell, you would know that this is a layout issue, but sometimes you can just make sure. So you can see, if I put it again, that's a longer text in that inbox. That's not going to work. So the best thing to do that is actually get into that system in that machine that you're using. If it's your home machine, you will be basically copying directly from Microsoft the way it is, and then go into PowerShell. The second method is to go copy it, open a notepad, and put it in Notepad, because that's kind of like the editor that you would recommend for anything, or any other editor that actually is kind of like, they're putting the right layout. So you can see it's different. If you look at it, it's different from the top, because now we have line by line action. So you can see the first one is about the password, new user, and then go all the way down, and then basically it's in the right format. So if I enter, it's still going to fail. I want to show you a different, because I'm also doing troubleshooting with you guys, so then you can understand what's going on. So if I run this, you can see now it's a different error. It says error because you haven't, your domain is not correct. So if you copy paste directly from the Microsoft, they want you to change things, right? Because they're using Contoso as a domain. But if you look at your domain, my domain is JSTMW. So you got to make sure. This is another thing that a lot of new people will get stressed at, because they're copying things is not working, and they're not looking at these errors, because errors telling you that there's something wrong with your domain. So I'm just going to go ahead and actually change that domain to JSDMW. And 3. So now if I enter, and you can see we don't have that user right now. And you just confirm it. Let's go back, run it. And yeah, this is where I have issue, where I'm using a lab computer, and sometimes the click doesn't work. So you just need to put a space in there. So once you do that and you enter, you have the user created right there. If you want to verify it, you can go back to the system, refresh, and there you go. You have a user added, but the user, remember, is unlicensed. We haven't defined the license to this user. And that's where I'm going to show you step by step where you can change commands to do these. Later on, if you get really good at it, you do your study and make a nice script for yourself, so in one shot you can just put everything done. But here's what we need to really give this user, because right now this user is doing nothing. So of course, after this, you can go to documentation and learn how to add multiple users, or things like that. Individual users, maybe more practice will be required. Now for license, you need to understand that you need to learn what kind of license do you have, what kind of plan do you have. So we do have a command where we have to use a get command for that. And when you're using a command like this, we need to find out what kind of, is it an enterprise E5, or what is it that, on the front end it says E5, but here it's not going to say E5. So we need to find that first. So this get command that we're going to use right now, I'm going to show you again where you're going to get stuck. If you're using this type of command where it has MSOL, right, that That's why we did that installation, the module installation before, because we need to connect to this service, this feature. So first we were using Azure AD Connect. Here we need to use this connection because it's not going to work if you just use that command. So if you go back to the documentation, it tells you the first thing you need to connect to that. So you see how it says connect to Azure AD and then try this. So we're going to do this, connect, service, and now we're going to put the username and password. Before we use Azure AD Connect, that's different. This is different. So that's why I say that in the beginning, try to take some time to understand these. So now when I'm connected. I don't need to verify it again. I already showed you that in the beginning. But now if I go back and actually use that command, I can use the up arrow. You can see I'm using the up arrow. And when I did that, it just tells me that what is my plan. My plan is O365 underscore business underscore premium. So you got to understand this, because this may not be the same for you. If you have trial version, I think this is going to be the same. So now if we come back and we want to try different things and we want to assign a license, then we can do that. So let's go ahead and try to assign a license by clicking here. Now I highly again recommend, I'm going to say this again and again to people, that please try to take some time with documentation. But here, if I wanted to just assign a license, I can do that. So then we have more documentation. In some places, if you are required to, let's say, add a location, then you would want to kind of look at that type of commands to make sure location is correct. In this, I'm just going to go down and show you a simple way of using an msol command, which we already know that you need to log in first to get that msol working. So all I have to do now is to basically copy the example over here, and then we need to add that account in the right places in the quotations. So as I'm showing you, so for example, if I want to copy this example and then trying it out, I can find out or I can change the user's license. Now I already know how to find my the plan. I already showed you that command. Now I'm just going to paste that, and you can see I'm using the input feature from our lab, which is fine because this is not too long of a command. If it was a pretty long command, that I would be using directly inside the machine and copy pasting it directly into the PowerShell. Alright, so now we are going to just copy and put it in the system and just click enter, and that's it. It doesn't give you any success message or anything, but if I refresh, you can see the unlicensed will change from licensed. There you go. And that is how you basically assign license. If you want to confirm that, you can also confirm it by clicking and going to more details, but that's an easy way to actually check if it's done. So just remember that your plan has to be there, and the username and the password, the username has to be inside the quotation. So that's the most important thing in this. Alright, so now we are going to move on to some of the configuration that you can do in Office 365. So for example, when you add a user, during that time you could put like a lot of different things, names, last names, and a lot of different configuration can be changed. And sometimes you may require to change a location. So location is where sometimes maybe in Azure you may get stuck because location was not set, or you're trying to do something and location was not set. So as you can see, we are going to use an Azure command for this, and that's why I'm going to show you. Actually, this feature is easier to actually find on the Azure portal. So if you have that command, you're going to copy it in your PowerShell, and let's say for example, for all users, I want to change the location from US to France, which is FR. If I come over here, it's in the portal. There's not an easy way to find. If you refresh, there's not an easy way to find this information. So what I would do is I would go to portal.azure.com. Now, since you have portal.office.com access, you also have Azure access. This is the kind of like where everything is happening. This is the cloud backend version of your compute, your SQL, your apps. Everything is running from here, and you can see that your users are also here in Azure. So if you click on that user, then here you can see, if you scroll down, you will see the location change to France. So you can also go back and change it back to US, and just make sure that it's under quotation. As you can see, I'm changing it right now. And now if I go back and just refresh it, it will basically change that. Sometimes you may have to do it twice because it may be slower. So you can see it doesn't work immediately. So you'll have to do it kind of like in a few seconds. And then once you do the refresh button is inside the page. Again, you can use that, and there you go. The location is changed to United States. All right, next we are going to learn about admin roles. So there are so many roles in Office 365 that I highly recommend you should come over to the documentations of Office 365, how admin roles work. There are SharePoint administrators, there are help desk administrators. So if you go back to your portal, that's another way you can actually go into the user, click on manage roles, and here you can see some of the normal, like common roles that we give out. And then if you go all the way down, check mark, and just go down, you're going to see some specific roles, and there's so many. So again, I mean, the best thing you can do over here is just to go over some of these roles that matters to you, your job, probably the help desk roles, global admin roles. So here, if you go to the PowerShell, we have a command right here that we can use to basically change the roles. Now, the first 2 and 3 lines is the most important one. The first 2 lines where you can change things, specifically if you're working on a single command. So here I'm going to change the settings of this lab to make it fast and see better. And here you can see it's a kind of like the script is a little longer. So I'm using a notepad inside my lab. I'm not using a feature to copy paste, right? Because we already found out that our lab will mess it up. So you need to go inside that, lab where the PowerShell is running. If this is your computer, you're doing it on the same computers. So here I'm just copying the email because I'm lazy. I am just gonna copy paste it, and the reason I'm not typing directly is because it's just the keyboard that I'm using is a little, weird. So here we are seeing that we're gonna put a username global admin, and I'm going to copy the whole script from Notepad, and I'm just going to paste it as is. Now, if it doesn't work, then you're not connected. So that's the most important thing. Then recheck everything over here. And now if I go back and, run this command, and I just put, you see there's no message given. So I'm just going to go back and actually verify it now. So if you go back in the tab, if you click on it, there's a refresh on the top. So if you refresh it, you can see we have just assigned a admin role to this. Now this could be done for multiple users. That's your research to do. Go ahead and kind of find out how to do this for multiple people. But just do remember, connection is required. And then you can also remove the role from that user. So we're just going to copy that. And removing a role is pretty easy. As you can see, I am just going to copy paste it from the notepad again. And here I am just kind of removing the part where I just need to copy paste the email from the top. So again, like Microsoft is going to give you dummy usernames. You don't want to be using that type of username. So here I am just changing that, and then I'm going to copy and paste it in the PowerShell, and then it should work. Yeah, it's like this is where I'm making a mistake right now because I'm using a feature. So here I'm just going to go back to Notepad. And there you go. I just removed that role. And now if you go back and check, there shouldn't be any global admin role available. So very easy. All right, next we're going to talk about removing a user. So here I remove the users from a portal. And then if you go back to the deleted users, you can actually recover that user from a portal by restoring. That's a very common practice. To do this in a PowerShell, we can use the documentation, delete and restore section. And here you have multiple ways of using, like I said, Azure AD commands and msol service. So you can use different methods to do this. So we are going to use the msol basic command, and when we copy that, we're just going to have to change the name, the user, the UPN name, which is the full name of that user with the domain. So if you come over here, you have to copy, let's in this example, we can copy this, and then there's no quotations. Remember that piece in there, there's no quotation inside. So I'm just going to copy the command that I need to recover that user. And here I'm just going to change that and leave the user. So if I copy that and go back to my PowerShell, now remember in PowerShell, when you right click, it's just going to copy the first copied text in from that clipboard. So go ahead and copy it. There you go. There's no right click in GUI paste, just right click and done. So we have restored this user in our portal. So if you go back and check it, it should be there. So refresh, and there you go. That machine, that user is gone from the deleted side. If you go to active users, it's there now. And that's how you restore a user. And I recommend that you should check more into that. Blocking a user is simple. You probably will need to block a user for multiple reasons. This person is leaving a company, something happened, there's a lot of bad logins going on. So to do that, you simply need to copy the first command in this documentation. There are many other ways you can also do things, and unblocking is also the same way. So to block a user, we're going to use a false command at the end. That's the tag you have to use. So let's go ahead and change this. So here I am just kind of leaving this command, so then I can copy paste the username from here. I'm just going to copy it again. All right. So once we copy paste that, you can see I'm just copying the real email and not using the sample email from Microsoft. And copy. So we're going to go back to the PowerShell, and now we know that it's set. So now I'm getting an error. You see, it's a pretty simple thing. When you're looking at command, when you copy something from the data, you can see I'm doing a mistake there. There's a question mark. That's where you have to learn PowerShell, right? You got to understand if there's a character in front of a working command. Is it going to work or not? So for that, you definitely need to spend some time and learn PowerShell. That's something you can learn from this documentation, because they're not going to tell you that you got this error, right? Most likely there was a mistake you did and they didn't know about it. So that's where you need to go back and fix that command. So now if I copy paste again, I know that something is happening from the notepad. It's not working. I don't have a question mark in there. So all I got to do is to go back. And if I'm brand new, all I got to do is to make sure I am copying everything the same. So I'm just going to remove that question mark and run it. So now it works. So that user is now blocked. If I go and click on that user, you see that on the right top side, there's a sign in blocked. You can also check this from a Azure portal. That's another way you can actually check a user. To refresh, look on the left side. The settings is set to yes. Block sign in, yes. And that's how you basically block a user. You could also use the revoke session option to kind of force a session on a user to basically, sometimes people are logged into emails, OneDrive and things like that. This will force them to log out. So to unblock a user, all you have to do is to change the value from false to true. And similarly, you will go back to the portal, and this user can now sign in to the portal again and use the services. So there you go. The block is removed. I can refresh in the Azure, and now that's set to no. And that's how you block user in Microsoft Office 365. Next, we are going to talk about passwords in Office 365. There are many reasons you could be using PowerShell to do these changes, but do remember that you want to use it like a notepad type of environment or something that really works with PowerShell well. You have to make sure you put the password inside the quotation. So in this example, the first commands that we have, all we have to do is to change the first two lines, which is the user UPN name. So let's go ahead and change that. And the password inside the quotation. So we're going to remove everything else. So this is, you're just putting a password. You're basically putting a password for an account. There's no change and login it the next time and things like that. So we're just adding this password. We're going to copy this. And we're going to run this command, knowing that I am actually connected to the services, so it's going to work. So now I can copy this password and I can log into the portal with this new password and just verify, is it going to work? Because if you are going to do this for 50 users, I'm sure there is more to learn. But if you are going to do this to 50 users and we're using that password, then you need to first verify it. It works. Because you don't want to be sending 50 users this password because you just added them and it's not working. That's just, 50 emails with the wrong password. Now, next we can actually set this password, and we can set this password to, sometimes you want people to change the password. So one is to force a password to a new one, and one is to have users change the password at next login, just like Active Directory. Here you can see at the end, there's a force policy, and there's a force policy at next login. So we're going to try this last one. We're going to copy this command. And then we're going to just change the first two values, because the last two values, last two lines of this, we just need that. Because the first two values are the same from the last command, right? So we're just going to do that. Look, I'm changing that last two values only. And I know it's set to change the password at next login. Now copy this. And there you go. Now when we log into portal again with the old password, the password that we just defined here, it's going to have them change. And it's pretty cool, because if you have 50, 200, 300 users, they have to change their password then, right? You can say something in your email, our policies of password is blah, blah, blah. Your temporary password is this, right? To that same person, or you may have a different temporary passwords. So if I sign in, it's going to ask me to change the password. So that's it for the basics of PowerShell. I highly recommend you go in there and kind of read about different things. Next, we are going to talk about groups in there and details, just like what we did here. Of course, there's so much you can learn from it. My recommendation to you is from now on, you should be going into this documentation, playing around, create scenarios in your own mind. Try to create something for yourself. So next we're going to talk about groups here, and we're going to be doing the same way, GUI and then PowerShell. See you in the next video. Hope you liked it.